I don't hear him. What is this shit? Here we go. Where's the guy with the hat? Oh. Oh, I gotta turn off the music. Oh, there we go. There's some audio. There's nobody in attendance. Alright. So what's this show supposed to be about? Who's that guy? Who invited that guy? There's a delay in audio. I'm not used to that.
We're going to call Judiciary Committee to order.
Right,
Madam Clerk, take the roll.
Senator Kyle
Here.
is present. Senator Lamar
I'm here.
is present. Senator Lundberg.
Right there.
Senator Roberts
Present.
is present. Senator Rose is
Gone.
present. Senator Stevens
Not around.
is present. Senator Taylor
No.
is present. Chairman White
Here.
is present. Chairman Gardenhire is not.
Where the hell is that guy?
Madam Chairman,
brought
you
my
have a
hat.
quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any business before us before we take up a bill? You want to have an announcement?
I've got
Madam
an
Chairman, if you
announcement.
could run through the hat requirements and all that that we normally do.
You know, Senator, he did not leave me those notes. So we're just going to have to think about Senator Gardenhire, tell him that we miss him greatly, and maybe next week he'll be back to read all of his rules. Yes. But I know he's watching. I've talked to him. So, Chairman Gardenhire, we miss you, but we know you're getting well, and so
What's wrong
hopefully
with
you'll
him?
be back next week. If no other further business, we'll start with Senate Bill 181. Senator Wally, you are recognized. Is your mic on, sir?
Thank you very much for that reminder, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
I gotta look over there.
And to Chairman Gardenhire, I was prepared to say I had come hatless before the committee in knowing full well what the expectations are. And I also come with a great deal of
Trepidatude.
kind of excitement to present Senate Bill 181 for your consideration today. It is an anti-trafficking bill that has, with the amendment that will make the bill, has been worked on by members of law enforcement and others. And
that makes
I
it
have
credible.
tried to get around to your offices and leave information if I haven't been able to talk to you in person about this. So, Madam Chair, for the purposes of possibly calling up and considering the amendment, I would be grateful for a motion on Senate Bill 181.
A motion by Leader Lamar and seconded by Senator Kyle. You are now on the amendment.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So the amendment that you have before you, which makes the bill, as I mentioned, was brought to us by a variety of members of the law enforcement community and others. But the bill itself actually predated that. It was brought by Thistle Farms, who many of you are very aware serves women survivors of trafficking and prostitution. They've been doing that for over 26 years. And they work on a day-to-day basis with those women who have suffered the consequences of not only trafficking, but often even our aggravated prostitution law. Let me say a bit about that. I was here as a freshman House member in 1991 when the legislature enacted the aggravated prostitution law.
You
It was a
kidding?
very different time. As you know, we knew very little about HIV, except it was a terminal diagnosis at that time for most everybody. And so with that kind of concern and alarm and wanting to make sure that we did what we could for safety and justice, we enacted that. In 2010, the legislature decided to go farther and make the Class C felony, which comprised aggravated prostitution, also an offense that required a violent sex offender label and registration on Tennessee's sex offender registry. So just a little bit of background. We're the only state in the nation, though, that does require people with HIV who've been convicted of prostitution to register as violent sex offenders for their entire lives, with no remedy for consideration for any kind of expunction of that. And it really places a lot of barriers in front of women who've been trafficked and who many times, through no fault of their own, have contracted HIV and are trying to rebuild their lives. Our current laws, they neglect to consider that when someone is trafficked, they face coercion, manipulation, threats by traffickers and pimps, and as they try to rebuild their lives, we, I think, inadvertently have put up barriers for them that prevent them from being able to take advantages of any of a variety of services. We've limited their ability for direct access to escape trafficking. They can't, if they're on the sex offender registry, as you know, they're restricted by where they can live, work, travel in public, and they experience greater homelessness, unemployment, and so often can't get the services. Thank goodness there are places like Thistle Farms who have worked with them to help provide opportunity and hope. So this bill, as amended, would remove the requirement for those convicted of aggravated prostitution to register on the state's sex offender registry and reinforce the right for a survivor of trafficking and prostitution previously convicted of aggravated prostitution to have their names removed from the sex offender registry through the TBI process that currently exists. It would not remove aggravated prostitution as a crime, and it also makes sure that in a separate section of Code 39.3.109 that criminal exposure to HIV remains a Class C felony, but doesn't require sex offender registry. Madam Chair, I'm delighted if you and the committee might indulge to have Amanda Cleland here, the Director of Communications with Thistle Farms, who would like to provide just some brief survivor testimony. We did not ask the survivor, who really this bill was one of many that we were thinking of when we brought it to you, but if the committee pleases, for a few minutes, if they could hear some of the survivor testimony and impact and the difference this bill would make.
Okay. No objection. We're out of session. If you would like to come forward, if you will state your name and what organization you're with, and make sure the green light is on your microphone.
Thank you.
And you'll have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. That's all I get.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Amanda Cleland, and I'm the Director of Communications at Thistle Farms. I am honored to be here today on behalf of the remarkable women survivors that we serve. I'd like to extend my sincerest gratitude to the members of this committee for the opportunity to speak in support of this important legislative action. Thank our sponsor, Senator Wally, and to all of those who stand in support of this bill. Today, you have an opportunity to create a pathway for individuals who have been trafficked in our state to access meaningful employment and live a thriving, safe life. A graduate of the Thistle Farms residential program who is currently on the sex offender registry due to her 2009 aggravated prostitution charge recently shared with me her experience and how the current law has impacted her life. Out of respect for her privacy, I am honored to share her testimony. She is originally from East Tennessee, and when she was 20 years old, lost her mother. The pain of that loss was so great that she turned to the streets and drugs to cope. While that isn't the choice that she said she would make today, she was young and in pain, and that's the path she took. While deep in addiction, she began dating a man who abused and raped her, and as a result, gave her HIV. He then put her in the situation where prostituting herself was their means of serving and sustaining that addiction. In late 2009, she was arrested after getting into a car with an undercover police officer when she was tested and discovered to have HIV, and subsequently went to prison. Upon release, she was informed that she would be on the sex offender registry for the rest of her life. She shared that at that time she was young and had no idea what that meant or would mean. But now, every time she applies for a job, tries to get a place to live, or access recovery services, or just simply try to exist in this world, someone can find her name on the sex offender registry and see that she is supposedly a violent sex offender, often regarded as pedophile, just by virtue of being on this list. 2 years after she was released from prison, she entered the Thistle Farms residential program, and she stated that, quote, "They didn't care about my status because they looked beyond the SOR to understand what happened to me and saw that I would never be able to break this cycle of homelessness, addiction, and incarceration without being shown grace and understanding," end quote.
That's legit.
But once she graduated the program, she ran into obstacle after obstacle to housing, health, and employment. Because of this law and an abusive man who gave her a virus through rape, she has been denied from recovery programs, jobs,
It's
and
just like
homes
family
alike because
court.
a school or park are right up the street.
I was raped by
Due
Julie
to the stress of this,
Palafox.
she has experienced relapses and homelessness in the years since. It's taken her 13 years to finally stop using drugs and
I'm on a
alcohol, but
decade.
today she is 5 months clean,
Oh, good
and
for
she
her.
wants to live. She wants to have a good job, a safe place to live, and to reconnect her with her family, all things that are continuously placed out of reach because her name is on this registry. In closing, she wanted to express that she hopes that this committee and the entire General Assembly will see that these issues aren't black and
You got
white,
my vote.
and that you'll vote to pass this bill and fix the aggravated prostitution law for other survivors like her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you'll stay, there may be some questions. Are there any questions
question.
for our witness? Senator Rose, you are recognized.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being here today. Amanda, a couple of questions. How long was she in prison?
16 years.
She was in prison from January to September 2009.
All right, can you tell us if the man that abused her,
It's dead.
raped her, gave her HIV, did he suffer any consequences?
She did not share that with me. We didn't talk about that. I just
Okay.
wanted to talk about her impact.
All right, thank you.
Are there any?
That's
oh,
pretty
Leader Lamar.
Thank you. For someone who is charged or convicted with rape and they knowingly have HIV, does their rape charge become aggravated? Or does it up the penalties or anything?
I'm not sure. I would turn to our legal experts for that.
You should
No.
know the statute.
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions for our witness?
Part of the criminal code.
Sienna, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
And I would encourage anyone listening or in the audience to visit Thistle Farms. Y'all have amazing chicken salad and at your restaurant, and your candles are wonderful.
Oh, God.
So thank you for everything you've done for the trafficking victims. Seeing none, we're back in session. Senator Wally, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for listening to that
Testimony.
survivor testimony. Prostitution is a Class B misdemeanor. Aggravated prostitution is a Class C felony. And if one has HIV, then that puts you on the sex offender registry. I think that we have certainly learned quite a bit over the last 30 years since I voted to institute aggravated prostitution. Subsequent legislature made the sex offender registry mandatory because of HIV. But HIV is no longer the death sentence that it was in 91. No one wants it. It is certainly permanent. But this gives us, I think, a chance, Madam Chair, to be just, which I think is what we all really want to do for our people. So with
Really?
that, I would be glad to
Family
entertain
court
any
included?
questions about the amendment, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I got a whole bunch of pedophiles.
Senator
that
Rose,
I'm
you are
renewing.
recognized.
Madam Chair, if I could, I'd like to ask our legal
Go ahead. I'm ready.
lady, Miss Elizabeth, a question.
Lady.
Okay, we will be out of session.
Elizabeth, would you repeat your answer to Senator Lamar's question, please?
The transmission of HIV as part of a rape wouldn't make a rape charge into an aggravated rape charge. There is a separate offense that is criminal exposure of another to HIV, but that's not associated with rape. That's just any sexual contact that transmits the virus.
Miss Elizabeth, we're new to this, so if you'll state your name and
Oh,
who
yes.
you're with. First time, I know.
Elizabeth and Sonia Legal Services.
Okay. You have any? Okay.
got one.
Senator Lamar, you're recognized.
Just to follow up on that, so, and this, I apologize, this is not gonna impact how I'm gonna vote on this bill. It's really a question that I think, issues being brought up. So when someone who's prostituting with, HIV, they automatically get the aggravated prostitution because they have HIV. But someone who rapes somebody, they don't get any aggravated. You have to charge them with 2 different crimes versus this crime being an aggregated one. So is there essentially some inequities in who gets charged with aggravated crimes based on their HIV status?
I would just say your statement is correct, that it is aggravated prostitution if the person's HIV positive, but in a rape case, you don't have that same aggravated charge.
Interesting. Tennessee, thank you.
Okay. While we're out of session, are there any more questions for our legal? Seeing none, we're back in session.
Okay. What's this in and out of
Are
session
there
shit?
any questions on the amendment? We're still on the amendment. Motion, is there a second on the amendment? Second by Senator Kyle. Are we ready to vote on the amendment?
I'm ready.
That is correct. Okay,
What was that?
no further. All in favor of Amendment 11929, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The
No.
ayes have it. The amendment is on the bill. Are there any questions for Senator Wally on the bill? Senator Roberts, you're recognized.
Thank you.
Please.
Can you step me through, I know there was some opposition to the original bill that the amendment addressed, and I just want to make sure I'm clear what the amendment has done and how that's addressed some of the opposition to the original bill that was present.
Senator Wally,
you.
you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Roberts, yes, I'll do my best. I think some of the opposition to the original bill had to do with the perception that aggravated prostitution would be repealed rather than the person just being able to not be placed on a sex offender registry if convicted of that crime going forward. So it
Not
maintains
retroactively.
aggravated prostitution as a crime. It just eliminates the
Stigma.
registry component of that. That's my understanding.
Senator Roberts, you're
You
recognized.
wrote the bill.
So, and I'm not real clear on this, and forgive me of my ignorance, but
Alexander.
do we not already, as part of the SOR Act, do we not already have a provision in place that would allow someone who's been trafficked to be removed from the registry? And if so, what is this adding that we don't already have in law?
Senator Wally, you're recognized.
Thank you.
And by the way, forgive me, but if you want to hear from anyone with DAs, PDs, or anything like that, it's fine with me. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Sure. I'll tell you, best I understand is that there are provisions in our sex offender registry for application for removal. Trafficking, I don't believe is a part of that, but this was with aggravated prostitution. It requires a lifelong no opportunity for removal requirement for that particular sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we were trying to get at is one doesn't need to be included on the registry to begin with. And if you are on the registry, if this legislation passes and someone is on the registry now with that crime from previous years before this bill passed, they will now be able to at least apply to the TBI for removal from the registry based on this. It's not automatic. They'll have to go through and do that, but it will allow them to now be one of that class that can also apply to be removed. Going forward, we won't be placing victims of trafficking who are convicted of aggravated prostitution on the registry at all.
I need to move the
So I
camera.
apologize, that might not have answered your question, but that's
But my
as I understand
stupid
it.
thing is fucked up.
You're good. Senator Rose, you're recognized.
Thank you, and Senator Wiley, thank you for bringing this bill. I want to get a clarification, kind of follow up on Chairman Roberts. So the amendment, if I understand it correctly, if the person that has been arrested, that has been trafficked, if they can prove they have been trafficked,
Like my son.
then they will be removed from the sex offender
Yes.
registry list. If they cannot prove they
I'm
were,
working with Julie Palafox.
and I may
right
be
now to
wrong,
get my
that's my
son removed
understanding,
from
but if
this
they cannot
children
prove they
trafficking
have been
list.
trafficked, then they will not be removed. Is that correct?
Well, no, sir, I don't think
I
that's
don't think
quite
that's
right.
correct.
And
Okay.
I'm ready for legal to, if you don't mind, to help me if I misstate. If this bill passes as amended, anyone convicted of aggravated prostitution after the enactment of this legislation will not be included on the sex offender registry at all. However, for those who might have been convicted of aggravated prostitution prior to it, it will give them a pathway to seek removal from the registry, just like anyone else could seek removal from the registry of some of the other current offenses that get one placed on there to begin with. That's my understanding of it. And I would maybe defer to legal if you, for any elaboration on that, Madam
If
Chair.
there's no objection, we'll go out and hear from Mrs. Sonia.
Elizabeth and Sonia Legal Services. Under the amendment, a person who's newly convicted of the offense would not have to register, regardless of whether they're a trafficking victim or not. There'd no longer be a registration requirement. And a person with a previous conviction could petition to be removed. Again, whether they're a trafficking victim or not, they could petition to be removed. And then there is a part of the amendment that's conditional on being a trafficking victim, and that would be to get the offense expunged. You'd only be allowed to do that if you're a
If you were
victim of
trafficked.
human trafficking.
While we're out of session, are there any more questions for legal?
I got
Seeing
so
none,
many
we're
questions.
back in session.
Why do they have to go in
Are
and out?
there any other questions for Senator Wally? Senator Wally, would you like to close?
Madam Chair, I believe last count, I believe there are about 73 women on the registry right now that have this as part of their lifelong sentence and prevents them from getting those services. They would go through the process of looking to come off of the registry, through the current existing process. This would allow then those going forward that were trafficked or contracted AIDS to not have to be placed on that registry. That's what it would do, and I would be grateful for the committee's positive consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Seeing no objection, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Senator Kyle? Votes aye. Senator Lamar? Votes aye. Senator Lumberg? Votes aye. Senator Roberts? Votes aye.
vote
Senator
aye.
Rose?
But I don't think
Votes
these
aye.
people know
Senator
what the fuck
Stevens?
they're doing.
Votes aye. Senator Taylor? Votes aye. Chairman White?
Aye.
Votes aye. Chairman Gardenhire? Absent. Madam Chairman, you
vote
have
for him.
8 ayes.
With 8 ayes, your bill moves out as amended to calendar.
Thank you, Madam
Awesome.
Chair and members of the committee.
Thank you.
Any
Seeing no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
No.
Motion's made. All in favor say aye.
Nay.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned.
That's it. What is she typing? That was uneventful. Stop streaming.